You've worked hard since you arrived in the city, gained loads of experience, developed your skills. Everywhere you look, you see something you helped build. But now, you're looking to the future, and maybe you're thinking about where you come from. In Ireland, we need planners, carpenters, plumbers, roofers, engineers, architects, site managers, and more. We need you, with all your skills and knowledge, to help us build thousands of homes. You've built the world. Now come back and build the home that built you. For more information, visit gov.ie/Building Ireland. Brought to you by the Government of Ireland.
This episode is brought to you by Paranormal Playback, a new podcast where hosts Shar, Mel and Laura recap the spooky and entertaining world of paranormal reality TV. Each week they take a fresh look at popular shows like Ghost Adventures and Kindred Spirits, blending humour with insight as they pull apart what's happening on screen. The three of them are a mix of believers and skeptics, which makes for really fun conversations, sometimes leaning into mystery, other times asking the questions viewers might be thinking themselves. With their background in creative production, they know how these shows are put together, so they're great at pointing out the moments that feel real versus the ones that might be more for the cameras. And their segment, This Old Haunt, digs into the true crime side of paranormal investigations, separating fact from fiction. With Halloween coming up, it's the perfect time to add something spooky, funny and a little addictive to your playlist. For even more spooky, ghostly, paranormal content with a humorous spin, go check out Paranormal Playback. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Scary. I'm your host Will, and each week I narrate your real life paranormal encounters as well as famous paranormal cases. And if you have your own paranormal experience that you'd like me to narrate in the show, you can send it to scaryaparanormalpodcast at gmail.com and it just might get made into a future episode. As always, before we get into this week's episode, we need to say a special thank you to our new Patreon subscribers, who are Rona Morrow, Janine Croft, Phil Clark, Chatters, Lucy Lord, Lucy Lindsay Clark and Sarah Moss. Thank you so much for signing up to the show's Patreon. Helps me continue the show. Maybe one day this can be a full-time gig. And as always, if this is something you're interested in, you can find a link in this episode's show notes where you can gain access to ad-free main episodes and exclusive scary episodes. But now, let's get into our next encounter. In 2022, I was living in the northeast of England. I do some freelance sound work here and there. And most of my routine back then was quiet, lots of nights in, lots of laptop time, I guess. I was trying to build a portfolio, and I'd spend long stretches editing short films and audio interviews, that sort of thing. I think it sounds a lot more exciting than what it actually was, but I really enjoy that kind of work. I do like the paranormal, but I like to think of myself as the type of person that doesn't jump to conclusions. I don't really believe in much unless I see it for myself. It started with my wireless AirPods. I pretty much would always have them in my ears, going to the shop, doing dishes. I had proper studio gear for editing, but those wireless ones were my go-to ones for day-to-day stuff, I guess. One evening, sometime in spring, I noticed that they were making a weird sound. It wasn't music, just these short bursts of clicking. I disconnected them, repaired them, tried switching between devices, and that noise was still there. It was almost like Morse code, but if I'm honest, it was very annoying. This sound wasn't constant, it would come and go. Sometimes I'd hear it faintly over songs, just as you were putting them in, short little bursts, and then it would go away. And other times it would seem to go on for minutes. It wasn't loud, it was just very annoying. And I soon began to notice over a couple of weeks that it was happening a lot more in the night time when I'd listen to podcasts. Eventually I stopped using them altogether, and I went back to wired headphones and figured that the wireless ones were just dying a slow, weird death, and left them in a drawer and didn't really think much more about it. Nothing else happened right away. My days were still the same, mostly indoors, lots of editing, running errands when I needed. The neighbourhood I lived in wasn't rough, it was just quiet, residential, long rows of brick houses. One night, maybe a week or so after the headphone thing, I went out just before midnight for a walk. It had been one of those evenings where I'd been staring at a screen for too long and needed a bit of air. So I threw on a jacket and walked the usual route up past the park, round the corner shop, and then back along the main road home. That walk was always dead at that hour. There was not much cars, not much people. You might spot the occasional fox if you were lucky. So everything felt pretty fine, nothing dramatic or no big incident. But when I got back to the house, I realised that I couldn't remember much of the walk at all. I knew I'd been on a walk, and this wasn't a case of something being so routine that you just kind of block out the memory of it. It quite literally felt like I left my house and then was on the street, and then I was back in my house. And another memory that I didn't have was when I went to put my coat away, I checked in the pockets and realised that in the pockets was my AirPods, which were charged, and when I took them out of their case, they were warm. It was as if I had been wearing them, but I had no memory of wearing them. It sounds weird, but I did put it down to being overtired, staying up late. Must have put them on charge at some point, even though I have no recollection of removing them from the drawer and doing so. But there they were. So I guess life continued on. I had gotten a pretty hard deadline for one of the projects that I was working on, so I was pulling all-nighters. I was working pretty late. And most of my food came from the microwave. I'd walk past the local Tesco Express at the end of my street more times than I'd like to admit, and survive off ready meals. I was doing a lot more of my late night walks, not for exercise or anything, just to clear my head. When you spend all day listening to other people's voices or trimming down background hum, natural sounds or city sounds are pretty welcome. So I chuck on a hoodie and go nowhere in particular, around the block, up past the car park, that sort of thing. One night, and I remember this one clearly, I left the house a little bit later than usual. It was about half 12. I've been trying to clean up an interview clip and just needed to step away from it for a bit. There's a hill not far from my place. It's not much, just a rise with a view over some rooftops and a few trees to one side, and you can see right across the town a bit if it's clear. That night it was. There was no clouds at all, no wind, just really still, quiet air. I stopped there for a minute, scrolled on my phone, I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, high above the horizon, there was this light. It wasn't bright, not like a helicopter searchlight or anything like that. It was more like a star, but not quite. It didn't flicker like a star, it didn't drift off like a plane, it just sat there perfectly still. Just a solid white light way, 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 way up. I watched it for a minute or two and assumed it'd move or blink or do something normal, but it didn't. It just kind of hovered there. And then, without warning, it just slid sideways. I guess all in all, I was there for about 10 minutes watching it. The walk back was normal. I didn't feel scared or anything like that. It was just kind of one of those weird moments. So I popped in my earphones and continued my walk back. And then I started getting that same sound in my earphones again, that kind of Morse code sound. It was maybe 4 days later. I stayed in for most of the week working on the project. And I remember that afternoon I tried to think back over the past few days, and I realised I couldn't remember what I'd done on Tuesday or Wednesday. Not just little details, full blank period of time that I had no idea. I checked my phone and there was messages that I didn't remember sending. Just normal stuff. Replies to people. A photo of a bus that I'd apparently sent to a friend, and I couldn't remember why. That was very, very frightening. I remember having a shower to try and relax myself, and that's when I noticed that I had a mark on my ankle. 3 perfect dots. 3 little indents. To me, they look like really perfectly circular burn marks. Quite small, all in a line. Something you would remember stinging you. I had no memory of anything stinging me. After that came dreams. I had a dream I was walking along this flat, endless surface. I couldn't see anything around me. It wasn't dark exactly, more like grey-blue light. The floor wasn't ground either. It felt like glass or a really shiny, smooth surface. I could feel how cold it was underneath my feet. I wasn't wearing any shoes. And in the dream there was this humming sound, this low and steady, I guess like a sound that you would hear when you leave an old TV on, or if you left it on mute, that kind of power sound. It didn't get any louder or change pitch, it just was there in the background. In the dream, I guess the strangest part was that I wasn't doing anything, just walking, and every time I looked around, it was the same in every direction. Just flat, pale blue, nothing. I have this memory of walking for hours, and then I'd wake up. And there'd be no kind of panic or no bolt up in the bed. I'd just open my eyes and feel like I had been somewhere else. I had that same dream again the next night, and again the night after that. The third time there was somebody else there, or at least I think there was. I never saw them directly. It was like a presence just outside my field of view. I turned to look and there'd be nothing. but I knew they were close by, like something following you, maybe. I guess it wasn't frightening, it was just unnatural. There's something unsettling about a dream that doesn't change, that plays out exactly the same every time, right down to the footsteps you're taking. I started waking up more tired than I was when I went to bed, and I don't mean that in a dramatic way, I mean literally physically tired, like I'd done something all night that I couldn't remember. By the end of that week, I'd stopped setting alarms. I was sleeping through everything. One afternoon I woke up and it was nearly 5 p.m. Not because I had gone to bed late, I turned in around midnight, which to me was early. But I'd stayed down for 17 hours and I couldn't remember dreaming about anything that night at all. I then went through a period of time where things seemed to go back to normal and I had energy again. And I put the whole thing down to exhaustion. But about a week after that, I'd find myself waking up just after 3 o'clock in the morning, always feeling like I had been doing something that I couldn't quite remember. Like I had been in the middle of doing something and then just took out of it. And then the dreams came back, but now they were a bit fractured, I want to say. There was bright flashes and there was shapes that I couldn't identify, but I was still in the same area that I had been in the previous dreams. And then there was one night that I remember more clearly than all of the others. It wasn't a dream, I was fully awake. I'd gone to bed late after watching something on YouTube, I think. The bedroom window faced the street. There was a small road, some parked cars. This night I went over to the window to close the curtains and I saw something near the far pavement just under the light. There was two shapes about the size of kids. They were pretty narrow. There was no visible features from where I was, just outlines. One was more slightly forward and the other was behind them. I thought maybe I was seeing a shadow being reflected from something else. They were just motionless. They were there for probably 10, 12 seconds. And then the streetlight above them seemed to dim slowly, very gradually. And when it came back, they were gone. There was no figure standing there anymore. The next morning I went outside and checked that part of the street. There was nothing unusual there and I couldn't see anything that would be able to cast that type of a shadow, to create that type of a figure. I was pretty confident that it wasn't a shadow. Then I get a text message from one of my friends and I started reading it and then realised that I had sent them a message pretty soon after I'd seen those two figures. A message that I have no recollection of writing whatsoever. A lengthy message about pretty much nothing, mundane stuff, something that you don't need to be messaging somebody at that hour who is asleep. And my friend is writing back saying, I'm guessing you had a hard time trying to get to sleep last night. After this happened, I started to have dreams about the figures. They were now in my bedroom, they were in my house, they were standing at the bottom of my bed. those dreams were horrible. They were definite nightmares. Just figures tormenting me, trying to pull the sheets off the bed. They were horrible dreams. About 2 months later, I saw something again. Again, it was late, just past midnight. I'd gone outside to get some air. Didn't bring any headphones, as no matter what pair I wore, I was getting this Morse code sound in my ears. I was walking around and I looked up, and here was a light that was very high in the sky. And just like before, no blinking, no movement, just there. This was pretty high up. It was airplane altitude, only it wasn't shaped like a plane, and it didn't drift. No flashing lights. I watched it for a good few minutes. Nothing changed with it. And then, just like before, it moved off to the side. Always sideways. Just this clean, horizontal, no build up. Just shoots to the side. So I continue with my walk, and I met this guy asking me if I had saw that light in the sky. And I told him, yeah, I did. And he was like, so weird. Maybe it's a UFO or something. Starts laughing and continued on his walk, and I was kind of happy that happened, because I thought I was going insane. I guess what I had was a few months in 2022 where everything seemed to be really weird. I honestly believe that something was watching me or interacting with me in ways that I don't know if I'll ever fully understand. I haven't done hypnosis. Part of me doesn't want to. I don't know if I was abducted or just tormented for a period of my life. But I know that something paranormal definitely happened within those few months. I've experienced exhaustion in the past, and you could easily put all this down to it, but I know from the marks on my body, from the other guy witnessing the UFO on that same night, from seeing those things outside my house, that whatever happened to me was real. Thank you to Sam for sending in his paranormal encounter. I do not claim any shadow beings outside my house. Please do not. Do not send me Morse codes or appear outside my house, please. Thank you. Don't forget to tell a friend about the podcast, and why not join our Facebook group and Instagram page. You'll find the links in the episode show notes as well. I really need to be a bit more social media savvy. I know. Thank you for listening to this week's episode, and join me next time for another episode of Scary.
Dibrig tú go díon ó chánig tú go dtí an chathair seo, fuair neart taithí agus d'urbar de chud scileanna. I ngacháte éigean tú, fecinn tú rud éigean a chabhraigh tú a thógáil, ach inis tá tú ag féchant ar an todhchaí, agus beidir go bhfuil tú ag smaoinemh ar an áit as a dagan tú. In éireann, tastaíonn pleanálathe, siúnéirí, ploméirí, díanadóirí, inaltóirí, altíirí, banistóirí láithreáin agus níos móhain. Tastaíonn túhain, le do chud scileanna agus taithí go léir, chun cabhrúlinn na mílte tithe a thógáil. Tá an dahan tóga agat, a níos tar arás agus tógan teach a thóg tú. Tuile eolais ag gov.ie/Building Ireland. Teachtareacht ó Rialtas na Héireann.
Attention party people! You're officially invited to the Party Shop at Michael's, where you'll find hundreds of new items starting at 99 cents with an expanded selection of party wear, balloons with helium included on select styles, decorations, and more. Michaels is your one-stop shop for celebrating everything from birthdays to bachelorette parties and baby showers to golden anniversaries. Visit Michaels in-store or Michaels.com today to supply your next party.
It's the big sale of the year at All Modern, a Wayfair specialty brand. October 26th through the 29th. Save up to 70% off modern furniture and decor, plus fast and free shipping. Shop the big sale of the year at allmodern.com.